Hello, everyone. This is Carlos Conza with Global Business Culture, and I'm here again on another business culture matter conversation. This time, we're going to be hosting Ricardo Conza, he is the Chief People Officer at CoAlto Bank. So, Ricardo, welcome to the show, and thanks for
Thank
being here
you.
with us.
Thank you, Carlos. So excited to have this conversation. I hope we discover some things here, some new
Yeah,
ideas that we can share with people.
I'm sure we're going to be unveiling a lot of interesting stuff about the art of doing business in Mexico, the fundamental pillars of Mexican business culture. So that's essentially the main topic of today's conversation. But before we get into that, Ricardo, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit of, well, tell us and the viewers and the public, tell us a little bit about you. Who's Ricardo Conza? Your background, anything you want to say about yourself?
Sure. Thank you. Well, so I was born in the US, grew up mainly in Colombia. I stayed there for, I don't know, 19 years. I've been living outside of Colombia last, will be at least 27, 28 years now, mainly
Hmm.
in Mexico. So Mexico became my second home.
Hmm.
So I am American, Colombian, with a Mexican heart, an international soul. That's what I say always. Been living around many places. I was a little bit of time in Spain. There, I was in China for a while as well. The U.S., Canada. So I've been doing business all around. Mainly, well, I'm a psychologist. I was gonna be a therapist. That was my first goal in life, but at some point, I understood that there was something to do. There's a lot of things to do in the corporate
Hmm.
world. And if you want to relieve some suffering, go to the corporate world. There's a lot you can do there. So I started my career in technology. So I've been working around technology and finances, FinTech for many years now. I don't know how many years now, but I'll listen
Uh-huh.
to 2 decades. It's been a great experience for me. I have been learning a lot about me, and I have been learning a lot about people, and especially how you do business in an environment such as Mexico. So just so happy to be here. That's it. That's mainly what I can say. Okay, I'm the father of three as well. So
Father of three. Yeah,
yeah,
welcome.
yeah,
Welcome
26,
to the
23,
club.
and 15.
Yeah, welcome to the club. I'm also a father of three handsome boys,
Oh, you
and
have
I had,
three boys. That must
yeah,
be a
three
challenge, man.
three boys. I didn't have any girls. I mean, luckily, I don't know. I mean, I wish I would, but I wasn't lucky enough. But it's fun to be a parent, isn't it? So, all right. And what about? Tell us a little bit about CoAlto Bank. What is it? What is the value proposition?
Well, we used to be a fintech. So we were born thinking about allowing SMEs to have some new opportunities to get some credit and, of course, to develop their own businesses. We wanted to create an ecosystem that they have banking services, that they have credit services, that they have everything that you can get it from a bank, from a fintech. But a few years ago, 4 years ago, we decided to acquire a bank. So we acquired Finterra Bank. So we became Banco Cobalto. It used to be Credit Justo. And
Hmm.
now we are aiming to be one of the 10 most relevant banks in Mexico. So that's the plan. We are growing fast. We are doing things very well, by the way. So it's been hectic sometimes, I may say, because
Uh-huh.
a fintech that is acquiring a bank, two different cultures, two different ways of thinking, is something that I wanted to be part of. So when they invited me to be part of it, oh my God, it's been 4.5 great years. I'm so happy that this is happening. And we are aiming, again, just to be one of the 10 most relevant banks in Mexico. We know what we're doing. We have a lot of new products. And at some point, when you have some more time, I'm going to give you more information about that. But there's a lot we can do and you can access us. So if you want to visit
Absolutely.
cobalto.com, just go there. There's going to be a lot of
There it is
information
right
about
there,
us.
folks.
Okay,
You see
yeah,
the
yeah.
clicker at the bottom? Yeah, sliding from side to side. That's the URL, cobalto.com. So just go there, click it, and learn all about the bank, CoAlto Bank. I'm sorry.
CoAlto Bank, right?
Finally, before we jump into the topic, so tell us what is it? You're a chief people officer. What does a chief people officer do?
That's a good question. Um, Let me tell you a little bit about my role. So, when you have a company, I'm going to talk in this case because I'm not sure if every chief people officer does the same thing I do. There are some, maybe, I don't know, so with so many tasks that we have in common. But in CoAlto, we have a very special way to see the business. And the people side of business is so important for us that we
Mm-hmm.
decided that we need to have a chief people officer. And not every company has a chief people officer. Actually, some companies may be thinking, I just read an article yesterday that they were thinking about, we are going to be the first company without HR. They said that like 3 years ago. Now they are suffering some pains that I think they could have handled before. But I do think that a people officer needs to be very connected with people's vision
Mm-hmm.
and the company's vision. Let me put it this way. I was in this forum a few weeks ago. They invited me to talk about work-life balance or
Mm-hmm.
work-life integration. And when we got to the, I don't know, maybe half of the panel, it was an hour, so we were about 35 minutes. And they still, at some point, I just got tired that people were discussing about if you can go to the supermarket while you are in working hours. So I decided to say, okay, this is not work-life balance. This is not work-life integration. If you want to create a successful business, you need to integrate two things: the vision of the person and the vision of the company. If you have
Mm-hmm.
that, you're going to have more engagement. If you have that, you're going to have more results. If you have that, it's going to be a single way of seeing life, from one person who is thinking about my life, my company, I'm sorry, my work is part of my life. So I don't need to integrate anything. I don't need to balance anything. I just need to make sure that everything is okay in my life because it's the same thing. Once you
Mm-hmm.
integrate visions, so it was a little hard for us to get there because that including the panel, the conversation got there, and it was it started a very good conversation about that. But the point is that a people officer needs to make sure that happens. If you don't have a business. If you just have people executing some things, and maybe you may have some results, but you don't have, as we say in Mexico, romperla, which is break it, which means
Mm-hmm.
go there, go to the next step. If you don't have that connection, so the first thing I will say is about connection. You need to have a purpose and the frame where that purpose lives. That's your main goal as a people officer.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you need to handle a lot of things, the payroll and everything, but I think that's the main thing. And you need to be, you are kind of the Merlin that is talking to the King Arthur or Queen. Just you're not going to be taking the sword out of the stone, but you're going to be there every day, knowing that it has to be done in some special way. So the company has this, this crispy sensation that we are getting there. So that's very important. And the other thing, of course, you need to manage costs. You need to make sure that every person that is here is, adding value, and you are adding value to the person as well. So I might say we are like, we need to make sure that we are giving people significance of what they do, of what the company does, and you need to integrate those visions, the vision from a person, the vision from the company, and to connect that in order to create some result. I think that's what a people officer does.
Mm-hmm.
So being Merlin, sometimes you need to do some magic, and sometimes you don't know the trick and you need to invent one. So that's it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thanks for elaborating because honestly, I mean, I've been in sales and marketing and communication and technology for a long time, and it's many times I've seen the title chief people officer, and it's kind of a recent thing, if I may say so, which is intriguing for a lot of people. So thanks for elaborating on that part. And now we know. Now let's jump into the topic. So, which is the art of doing business in Mexico and the fundamental pillars of Mexican business culture, doing
Okay,
business
good.
globally. So, right. So, tell me something, Ricardo. With your, let's say, unique multicultural background, you were born in the U.S., you were raised in Colombia, you have a a Mexican heart and an international soul, as you say. How has this shaped your approach to building organizational cultures across different countries?
Oh, that's a great question, my friend. Let me put it this way. Once you understand that culture is not what you say you are, but what
Uh-huh.
you don't say you are, what you are not looking at, it's exactly what is happening when you are not looking at something. That's culture. Culture is more what you allow to happen that you then you promote to happen, but the things you promote to happen. It's more that you what you allow to happen. So um well, I was raised as a Navy brat. Of course, my
Mm.
father was on the Navy. That's why I was
Uh-huh.
born in the US in Rhode Island. Grew up mainly in Colombia, but I had the opportunity to live in many cities in Colombia. So I went from Bogota, which is a 10 million people, very cold city in the top of the Andes, um, compared to Leticia, which is a very small city in the Amazons, where you are,
Mhm.
it touches in frontiers with Brazil and Peru. So if you want to walk from one country to the other, you just can do it. At this point, when I was little, I was living there. So once you understand that you're going to be changing, as just as happened to me, which is so nice from in some part, knowing so many people from some different cultures, different backgrounds, and hard as a kid because once you have
Mhm.
some friends, then you need to go to the next step. Um, so it's kind of hard sometimes, but it teaches you a lot of things. I was thinking about a friend of mine when I was in primary school in Leticia. He didn't have any shoes. He didn't wear any shoes, and the ones that he sometimes used, well, his mother made those shoes. So it was very impressive for me to live in that kind of conditions, in those kind of conditions that um, allowed me to see and to appreciate many ways of seeing the world. Because a kid from Bogota who is very proud of his new shoes in his first day at school. So it's not the same thing when you are talking to a person that doesn't wear shoes because they don't need it. They don't want some shoes. They just need it. They use it when they want.
Mhm.
They really don't need it. So it happens the same thing when you are thinking about relating to other cultures. It's
Uh-huh.
happened the same when you go to Mexico, if you go to China, if you go to the US, if you go to Canada, to Spain, to Costa Rica, or whatever. At the end, it's about understanding that we are humans, and humans, no matter where, have very similar necessities. There are some things that are going to be different in different cultures, of course, and culture matters. Believe me, I do know that. But
Mhm.
culture at the end is exactly what we don't talk about. It's not only what you show. Let me give you this example. When we were acquiring with a company I was working for many years ago, we were acquiring companies in China. So we went there, and we were so worried about how we were going to be relating with them, with the Chinese people who are so different. You know, so ancient culture, so different from Mexico that is almost only 500 years young. So what are we going to do about that? And we were so worried about that. We took a training, so the protocols that we needed to implement, how to relate with the employees there, how to relate to authorities, etc. So, but what happened is that we went there. We're trying to implement the intro trainings for the company, and even we had that kind of training, even we had all that information, it went so wrong, my friend. It was so wrong. So when we're going back
Why,
to
why was
Mexico,
that? Why so
yeah,
wrong?
they each, because we weren't connecting with people. We were doing exactly what the university we hired
Mhm.
and the trainers we hired told us to do, the protocols that we needed to follow. So we thought that was going to be okay, right? So, but we were not connected with people. So those trainings, we had this event that it was very important for us. People spend a whole day just talking about the culture of the company before joining the company. So we did that in China. But it went wrong because people were not, they were not enjoying that. Language was a really big barrier. So we could not communicate in the first training. But when we were coming back to Mexico, we had this conversation. Okay, what went wrong? And some people they thought that we applied the protocols wrong, But there was one person who told me, Rich, I think it's not about the protocols. I think it's how we're looking at that person, how the observers that we are when we are interacting with them. So he said something like, what if we imagine just for a minute that this guy, he may look a little different from me, but he may be from Aguascalientes, or he may be from Monterrey. So he's not that different. He may have a different accent, but he's going to be very similar to me. So we changed that. And we came back 2 months later to apply the same training with some of the same people, and it was totally different. And let me tell you something. Some of the people in the first training, they spoke English. So we tried to communicate in English, right? But in the second training, many, I think at least 80% of the people could not speak English. So we have somebody translating everything I said in English. They're going to be translating to Mandarin or to Cantonese. So, but the connection was so different. Once you understand that the person that you have in front of you is a human being that needs to feel significant, competent, and appreciated. Okay. It doesn't matter his background. It doesn't matter who that person is. Once you're there, looking at a person, even if you don't communicate well, if you don't speak English or any language, it's going to be easier to connect because you're letting the person know that you're valuing them. So the second training was so different. People were having so much fun. People were telling me things like, I never had a training like this. I'm so happy. I thought that you guys weren't going to be understanding our culture, but you know our culture. I said, man, I don't know anything about your culture. I just have a few trainings, but these people felt that we knew. But we were talking about a person to person. We have people talking to people, not a Mexican, an American talking to a Chinese. So I think that's what I have been discovering all around. People have some very similar necessities about significance, competence, and appreciation. Once you have a company, once you have an environment where people feel like that, honestly, magic starts to happen. That may be my main discovery.
Gotcha. But I think that from what I'm hearing is that it's very comforting and it's easy to talk about when we all feel like we are equals despite our differences, or how we converge into one space or in one company culture, for example. But what do you think about, this is something that I would like to ask you next, is what about the opposite? I'm talking about the differences, the nuances. For example, things like communication styles.
Yeah.
In your experience, I mean, you've worked across the Americas and Asia, and how do you think communication styles differ, and what practical strategies do you think do you give leaders to navigate these differences?
I'm going to say something that I think is profoundly simple, and it's so simple that you're going to say, okay, Ricardo, this is not true, but it's as simple as that. There are 3 factors that you need to train people to, especially when you're talking about cultural differences, because cultural differences exist. And let me put it this way. So thinking about China, it was so hard at the beginning, because we were imagining that we were traveling to another world. I had never been in China before. I was very young at that time. I'd never been, out of the continent at that point. So I felt so challenged at that point. So we actually conducted a study with a university, an European university, that helped us to understand the difference between China, Mexico, and the US, the cultural difference in the workspace in China, Mexico, and the US. And it was so revealing. I was so impressed about that study, because the results that we had is that at the end, Mexicans and Chinese were a lot more alike than Mexicans and Americans. And we are just a few kilometers away, right? So, so it was totally breaking my head. I was so amazed about that result. So let me put it this way. It doesn't matter where you go. if this very profound thing that is called openness is there in your environment, people are going to be relating a lot better. Differences are there to be appreciated, to be, how do I say it, capitalized, not to be only observed. Because every time I talk with, and I have been talking a lot with cultural experts, some people that even train other people as the ones that trained me, and actually it didn't work out. So I was so amazed by that. But what I find is that people tend to focus a lot on form, but not in the deep side of the relation. And I think it's easier, it's simpler. If we are in a total, actually, you and me, Carlos, we are very different. I know we may have a similar background. We may speak the same language. I speak a little English. Actually, you speak a lot better English than me. So I will say that this should be a barrier between you and me, but it's not. Because once you get into a relationship, and this is for the workplace as well, believe me, it applies to couples, families, whatever, but believe me, this is in the workplace. If you create an environment where people can express and say, I'm sorry, I don't understand you. I'm sorry, I know that you and I speak English, we speak a very different kind of English, so I need your help. Let's talk about that again. That's where the magic begins. So differences are there, and communication barriers are there, but it's not something that you need to be focused on, but in not only in similarities as well, but in the way that people are less defensive to relate to each other, thinking and valuing the difference. It's not about working in, how do I say it in English? I'm going to say in Spanish first. No se trata de trabajar a pesar de las diferencias, sino de trabajar y crecer gracias a las diferencias. It's because of the differences between cultures, ideas, people, origins, that you create a very good work environment.
Absolutely.
And of course, you need to take that into account. Some things that I may do here may be offensive in other countries, of course. But if you are open enough, some things, and believe me, this happens to me, being raised in Colombia, growing up in Mexico, it's totally different kind of Spanish that we talk in Colombia than we talk in Mexico. And I had some very fun situations that people, and my friends especially, remember you said that? That was a very bold, loud word that you shouldn't have said that. It was very, 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 very rude from you. Okay, I was just talking as a Colombian talks. But if we both know that, you can even laugh about that, right? So that's my point.
Yeah, and that has to do with precisely with cultural awareness. You are aware of the differences, right? So exactly.
You are aware of the difference, but you are not focusing on the difference, but focusing on the relation. That's the point.
Right.
And I forgot to say that the magic and the profound, simpler thing, as Will Schutz used to say, a great psychologist from the 20th century. He said that openness, and I love that, openness is the magic word for creating great work relationships. It's the great simplifier of every relation. Once you are open, and it's not about, there's a difference between being open and telling you, Carlos, I don't like the way that you're using your microphone. That may not get us to a very constructive place. But if I tell you something like, Carlos, I don't understand, and I need you to help me to understand, I'm talking about more than myself, and giving people the awareness that they are different from others, and they can create something totally different, new, something new. Once two people met, it's a whole universe creating that at that same point. So once that happens, once that people understand that they are not defensive, and you were asking me before, what's the function of a chief people officer, is making sure that there's consistency in the organization. Absolutely. And whether consistency is about openness, is about, I can talk and I can say, I don't know this. I may speak with an accent. I don't think with it. Let's talk about this. So things are going to be different. So there are differences. Don't focus on that. Be aware of those. Be careful of those, because sometimes you may commit a mistake, but be open just to make those mistakes and not be defensive about what other people think. So
Right.
that creates magic.
Great. Yeah. Speaking of the workplace and the relationships at the workplace, I know that you believe in collaborative intelligence. So let me ask you this: how do you train global teams to leverage cultural diversity as a competitive advantage rather than seeing it as a challenge to manage?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that question. Could you put it some other way?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I couldn't get the question.
Yeah, well, the question is this: I know that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you believe in what you call collaborative intelligence. Am I correct?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, I do.
So in this context of collaborative intelligence, how do you think that global teams should be trained in order to leverage cultural diversity as a competitive advantage
Okay, great.
rather than seeing it as a challenge to overcome? In other words, cultural diversity is, oh, this is going to be a great thing. We can leverage this. Or cultural diversity, oh, what a bummer. This is something that we need to solve and deal with, So the perception is different. So how do you train global teams to make them aware of this? How they can leverage this cultural diversity instead of dreading it.
Yeah, totally. I get it. So here it is. I think you need to be training people. Of course, management skills are so important. Um,
Mhm.
just to conduct a business, you need to know how to treat people. You need to know how to create results through people, not only for you. So leadership is going to be a very important word, thinking about cultural diversity. So the first one is leadership. And you need to create this layer of leadership may not only be, the sea level or, the high people living in the Olympus. No, you talk with the leaders are going to be culture people. If you want to create culture, and you need to help them, especially to overcome their rigidities, which is something that is hard sometimes,
Mhm.
and to express them out loud. Carlos, I don't like the way you do things. I don't like the way you do that. Explain to me because I need help to understand that. Why do you do that? Right? Once you understand why, once you understand what they are trying to accomplish, you're gonna noticing something. The why is so important. And of course, this is not something I say. So many authors talk about that. The why is so important. Why you do what you do is more important than what you do, right?
Mhm.
So why do once you understand that we are in the same point, that we are looking for the same thing, that's what we need to talk about. That little thing, that little when these two lines, creating this vector with this vector, that little point, that little confluence point, that's what you need to talk about, and you need to focus on the why you are doing this. And
Mhm.
of course, and something that let me put it this way, I've been, making so many mistakes my whole career. And I don't know, maybe I could write a book or maybe a very
Mhm.
long book about my mistakes, thinking about culture. But
Uh-huh.
what I can tell you is that every time I made a mistake and every time I had the opportunity to ask why, and that person, no matter the origin, they asked me and they understood why, we found a way to overcome that problem. So I
Mhm.
think you need to train them. So leadership is very important. And as well, helping leaders to understand their own rigidities so they can be aware of that, so they can relate to other people that may behave, think different, but
Mhm.
they're going to feel the way you feel. At
Right.
the end, language is different. Um, Culture is something that is between nature and structure. You know, culture is what creates that connection between the nature. There will be somebody will may say chaos. I will say the natural order and the total structure that you may have in a company, such as processes,
Mhm.
policies, systems, everything. Culture is what is between those two. So it's always negotiating But once you understand what you are doing something in a structure or by
Mhm.
nature, if you understand why and you can talk about that, it's going to be so easy. And
Right.
so when people invite me to talk about or to train executives to overcome cultural differences, I always tell them, let them know that they are rigid, but they may not see the rigidity. So teach them to do that. And the other thing, let me put it this way: there are two kinds of families: the ones that are dysfunctional and the ones that don't know they are dysfunctional. So every team has dysfunctions. So they are not perfect teams. They are not perfect companies. So in order for that, I think that you need to train people on how to be humble, how
Hmm.
to be themselves, on how to and humble. It comes from humus. That's where the word human comes from. Humor comes from. So you need to train leaders to be humble and to understand that they're going to be stepping down in a culture that they don't understand. So they need to be very, very humble, they be more flexible, and they need to lead. And just to close this idea, my idea of leadership is that to lead is to serve. There are so many things about it, and we can discuss that. You know, lead is serving other people.
Yeah.
Leadership is not something you are. You are not a leader. You are leading, which is different. It's something you do. It's a service that you provide to other people. So once
Absolutely.
you do that, so you're going to be changing people's lives. Let me put it this way: we acquired a bank. We used to be a fintech. So if you can imagine the difference between the guy that is wearing, a suit that is totally different from the guy who's working in a fintech, wearing a t-shirt, with very different kind of view in a regulated space as CoAlto, because we need to answer to a very strict regulation, which is the banking regulation in Mexico. It's not an easy thing to do, but you can do it. So different people can relate if you go to that point where the vectors is crossing. That will be my idea.
Okay, great. We are coming up on time, unfortunately. They always say that time flies when you're having a great time, right? So unfortunately, we need to start wrapping up. But I wouldn't want to finish the conversation without asking you about your experience or as a speaker at global forums. So let me ask you this: what is the one cultural insight that you wish every global business leader understood before they expand internationally?
Oh, that's beautiful. That you need to study yourself very well
Uh-huh.
before you go there trying to study others. You
Okay.
need to understand your own culture first, and you
Okay.
need to talk about that, discover what you are not talking about. You need to open those conversations to really understand and measure your culture. Culture is not something that is esoteric and it's something that you can measure. And there are so many ways of measuring culture. But if you
Mhm.
don't understand who you are as a person, as an executive, as a company, um, don't go there because you're going to be walking like an elephant in a store,
Mhm.
breaking everything. So I think it's about self-awareness is the most
Self
important part, and
self awareness.
awareness. Yeah, self-awareness and and self-concept. What's the concept of your own company and yourself
Mhm.
as an executive, as a company that you really want to have, so you can create more healthy relations with other companies, with
There
other
you go.
cultures, with other people. I think that's the most important part.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Before we go, what I call the final words of wisdom. So, for organizations just beginning their cultural awareness journey, what would you say is the first step you recommend they take, and what is the biggest mistake they should avoid?
That's very important. So through Endeavor, I have been mentoring many companies, and what I found is that the biggest mistake, let's start with that, is that everybody wants to be Google, Facebook, or whatever companies is at the top, Nvidia or Netflix, because they have a very beautiful, it's a culture there, right?
Mhm.
So, but I think that's very wrong. Let me put it this way: if I wanted to be blonde tomorrow, and I've just painted my hair, at the third day, there's going to be still, it's
Mhm.
going to be a little whiter and gray in a few months, I believe. But in some days, maybe 3 days, there's going to be this roof that is going to be black. So instead of trying to look as a fake blonde, you better want to look as a real, honest brunette, because this is what you are. This is your genetics. This is what you really are. So what I will say to companies that are starting to talk about culture, don't aim to be any other company. Aim to be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, you need to understand that you are not a static, you are not a tree, you are changing, you are evolving. And the way Carlos Ponce, if I ask you, Carlos, what were you thinking about having kids and how your kids were going to behave and what you were going to allow you to do when you were 15 and you were, fighting with your parents to be free. So it's totally different from what you think today. So it changed a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to be the same person. So you need to be in this process of self-discovery, and you need to talk about that. You need to measure that, and you need to connect that with results. Not trying to be. So my advice would be, don't try to be other company. There's nothing less cool than a company that wants to be cool but is not cool. It's like my father using his hat, putting it this way to relate to me. I said, what's wrong with this guy? He cannot relate to me this way, right? So don't try to be someone that you are not. So assess your culture, value it, make sure that you're measuring it. And there are so many ways that you can measure culture. If that's the culture that's going to get you to some place that you want to be. I always say that's it. But appreciate who you are.
Appreciate who you are. Exactly. And I couldn't agree with you more. I remember the time that I tried to dye my beard, which is white, to match my hair color, which is black. And at first it was like, that's strange, but it looked awkward, right? So I just decided to accept who I was, and I just realized that my beard is white, my hair is black, so be it. And I'm happier.
Yeah, you're
I'm
happy about
happier.
that.
And
Because
so
you're not
what?
discussing.
Nothing's gonna
Let me put it
nothing's
this way. No, you're saying something so special. There's a friend of mine it's a CEO from a very important company here in Mexico, and he was telling me something that we should be doing this like Google does. We should be doing this like CoAlto does. We should be doing this like. So he was firing a lot of people, changing his executive team. And they say maybe the whole team in 2 years was totally different. And I said,
Mhm.
okay, you really know who you are. Do you really know who you are as a CEO or not? I say, of course, I am like this, I'm like that. No, but who you are? What are your principles? What are your real principles? Not the ones you wish you have, but
Mhm.
what are your real talents? So at the end, you need to, it's also about capabilities, the
Right.
capability from a company as Coca-Cola, as that may be delivering Coca-Cola in the other side of the of the in the war. They can sell Coca-Cola to the other side, and they're still consuming that. Even there's a war with their own country, they can do that. The capacity to deliver is so important,
Mhm.
because that's something that company has. CoAlto doesn't have that capacity. We have so many different values. We have so many different, how may I say it, ways of seeing the world, and capabilities that we need to appreciate, because those are ours. Yours are your beard. It's the same thing. And you're going to be happier. People feel more honest. And, the environment that you create is more real. So people are going to be more engaged. That's what I would say to a company that's starting.
Right. Right. Besides, my wife hates Blackbeard when I dyed it. So she says, no, it's not you. You look different. You look different. You look younger, but you look different. And I go, okay, let's just go with the white. Okay, Ricardo, it's been a great pleasure to have you here on the show. Where
Thank you,
can people
Carlos.
get a hold of you? Do you have an email to share?
Yes, you can reach me at rich at cobalto.com. You can right there. You can look me on LinkedIn as Ricardo E. Conbariza, and you can look for me there. So if you want to have a talk, if you want to ask some question, if you want to teach me something, I'm more than open to learn. So thank you if you want to contact me, and thank you, Carlos, for this opportunity just to talk about culture. It's something that really excites me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Ricardo, what can I say? It's been a sheer pleasure to have you here and to have this conversation. Actually, we went over for almost 10 minutes, which
Oh my God.
that's a good indicator
Good.
of a fine conversation. So, Ricardo, please stay with me as we go off the air. And the rest of you, if you're watching, thank you. Keep an eye for more business culture matters conversations. And remember that Business Culture Matters is brought to you by Global Business Culture. And the company's website is right there, globalbusinessculture.com. And the email is info@globalbusinessculture.com.
Go there and visit the website. It's great. You have very good information there.
Yes,
don't miss that.
Indeed. Thanks for reminding us. And so, folks, there you have it. Ricardo, it was a pleasure. Stay with me. And the rest of you, see you next time.